I grew up in a home that had no faith. We pretended, I guess, church at times. We did go to an Episcopalian church for a little bit. I remember those. I have those memories as a child, going to an Episcopalian church. I grew up in Laurel, so it was on Main Street in Laurel. I remember that, and it's still there. My parents got divorced when I was about 10 years old, and so I lost that father figure in my life. The impact of that is essentially no guidance. And so when I would stray in my behavior as I got older, into my teenage years and things, and stray into behavior and experiment with things, there was no repercussion to it. Whereas if I know if I'd had a dad around, there would have been repercussions. Got out on my own, that really became my life. Alcohol, smoking, drugs, immorality, foul language, all that stuff. So that just kind of compounded, and as the years went on, it caused problems. I almost lost my job at one point from calling off work so many times, being hungover and not being able to get into work. So that kind of stuff just kept, I couldn't see that, I guess, in my life. I couldn't see the problems building and building and building, but they were. I just looked at it as bad luck, however you want to phrase it at that time. But somewhere along the lines there, kind of looking within and realizing that something is missing. Something's wrong here. If I just keep kind of getting in trouble. So in October of 1992, I decided to quit drinking. A few years go by. Some friends of mine from high school lived over here in Glen Burnie, and they were having a Christmas party, Christmas of 1995. And they said, "Hey, why don't you come to our Christmas party? We got a neighbor here we'd like you to meet." So I go there, and it turns out that their neighbor is my wife. So in comes the gospel.
The man I met was very kind, very attentive. And coming from what I had, it was warmth and care. But as I did get to know him, I realized he came from a very different family than I did. Kind people, but very much, as he put, tolerant of anything within this world.
She was just coming off of her divorce. Had gotten her dad had bought her that house to live in for her and Aaron. And so we met that night and hit it off immediately. We got married in December of 1996. A year later, we got married. Don't recommend that to anybody. Marrying, I was unsaved at the time, and she would tell you the same thing. She doesn't recommend that, but we got married. And started living life together, and I was going to church. Was not saved, but going to church.
And then a time came, because of, I would say, one in particular family in our church that really reached out to him, that he was more open and more willing to hear more about the gospel. And that moment came where he was willing for me to share the full gospel with him.
September 7th, 1997, in the living room of our house. We were sitting on a couch, and I looked over and I said, "I'm ready." I said, "God, I feel like I'm ready." And we got down on our knees. I prayed the prayer, prayed my prayer at that time, asked God to forgive me and save me. And, it's like, people always talk about that immediate weight lifted off your shoulders. Well, that was true. So we landed Fellowship, where we've been since 2005, and one of the things that drove us there was not really feeling like I was growing too much at the other places, discipleship type things. And so we come there and we start growing exponentially, as we know. As my wife would even tell you, somebody that grew up in church, she would tell you she didn't start growing until we landed at Fellowship, started really being taught the Bible.
The moment my husband got saved, one of the greatest effects I saw was he immediately witnessed to his own family, even through their rejection, of which they still reject him. Having his sister come over to the house through tears, sharing the gospel and being completely rejected.
So I think one of the things that the gospel has laid on my heart and helped me to grow in is educating others, discipleship of others, particularly kids, but also men. Coming from again where I am in my life, recognizing that there's probably a lot of men that need that. I want to minister to men, so got involved with the men's prayer breakfast and any kind of outreach type things to men that I can be a part of.
We're seeing the results in our children's lives of what happened to my husband, because they love ministry. He loves ministry, they love ministry. In fact, they miss literally being here in our home church ministering because of the memories that they created with their father. Whether it was, a door-to-door, whether it was vacuuming, whether it was setting up for a banquet or breaking it down, or whether it's teaching or master clubs or Sunday school or being in children's worship working together, whatever it was, they had a father figure that loved doing it, so they loved doing it.
Serving in the church. Any way we can, and that's only grown over the years as I've grown, gotten more opportunities to serve, as God has changed me and changed my heart and grown me. And I take every opportunity I can. I don't very rarely would turn down an opportunity to serve. I mean, how can I do any less, really, for after what Christ did for my life? How could I not give him all that I have? I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to my wife, to continue to live a godly life, to be a good testimony, to be a good, loving, godly husband. I have a responsibility to our children, to continue to be a good testimony to them, who, by God's grace, they're both serving the church. Spence obviously heading into full-time ministry, Aaron serving in campus church down there in many ways and teaching at the college. But now we're grandparents. Now we've got grandkids that we've got a great responsibility for, to be, again, good testimonies of the gospel, of the impact of the life in a life that the gospel has. I want to please God every day with my life, and so it's living a life of faith every day. I just feel that responsibility for the future.